San Diego employment attorney Ward Heinrichs is back on Big Blend Radio's Success Express, a business and career show, and he's joining us to talk about the new legislation for California's ABC independent contractor test, and it's used to determine which workers are independent contractors and which are employees. Ward is a regular Big Blend Radio guest and contributor to Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, as well as Parks and Travel magazine, where he handles hospitality employment law issues. Best thing to do, though, is especially if you're in San Diego or California, go to learn more about his work. Go to bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com. You can also keep up with him on Twitter and Facebook. So welcome back, Ward. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for welcoming me back. I really am looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is quite a topic. It's always good to have you on the show. You know, Nancy and I, we've been following this story with you for a little while now about this ABC contractor, this independent contractor test, and it's developing quite a bit. But I also want to say today we have a special guest sitting in with us, which is Stephanie McMillan here in Kentucky, Springfield, Kentucky, where we are today on our tour. And you guys have been on show together before, so this is a little bit different, isn't it, Ward? Before we were on happy hour and having fun, but this is a little bit
no, this is definitely different. It was a happy hour last time. We were more joking and rollicking, but here we're going to get serious.
Well, you talk about this being an independent contractor earthquake.
Yes, I really point out two different earthquakes that have happened recently with the independent contractor test. The first one was the dynamics test or dynamics case that outlined the new ABC test in California. That test has been used in other states previous to the dynamics test, but this is the first time in California, and it made it much easier for the state to recognize workers as independent as employees versus independent contractors. So bottom line is, after that, more employees would be the more recent earthquake, which hasn't happened yet. Actually, there's a bill that's passing through the California legislature that will apply this ABC test to many more employment laws. The dynamics test limited it to the wage orders, which only regulate a few things about wage and hour law in California. The new law that's going through the legislature will probably end up regulating all employment laws, if not all, at least most. And this new test will qualify more workers as employees throughout the state.
So more employees. And so this is federal, but California is going deeper and stronger.
Well, no, it's not federal. None of this is federal.
Okay.
I can talk a little bit about federal. The feds recently said, the Department of Labor recently said that gig economy workers like Lyft and Uber, are to be considered as independent contractors. The state of Texas said the same thing. So California is really different. In my view, the reason why the Supreme Court came out with this, or at least one reason why the Supreme Court decided to apply the ABC test, was to make those gig workers, Uber, Lyft, and any other gig worker who works in the gig economy, an employee. So there are different approaches. The feds really have taken a different one, it looks like. Now, it's just the Department of Labor, so it's not a law passed by Congress. Congress could override that. But that's a different approach than what California is doing, trying to bring all those gig workers in as as employees. There are exceptions in this law so far, and it hasn't been signed by the governor yet. So there will be some parts of the economy that will still be allowed to have independent contractors, at least if they pass some of the old tests. But there's going to be many more workers who will be employees in California.
Who has what to gain over this? I mean, how does the state of California, do they realize any gain for this kind of change?
Well, I think there's two things going on there. One, yes, there is some gain because the state of California will get more withholdings for taxes.
Oh.
Independent contractors are harder to garner taxes from, so the state likes it better if they get withholdings from employees. So then they've got some security there. The other thing is California law has been noted to be very employee friendly, and this is just another step in that direction. The old test was a 11 factor test. Often there were even more factors in it. That was pretty difficult to, well, at least relatively difficult to apply. Now it's simplified and it protects workers more, at least in the eyes of what the legislature is thinking. We want more employees to have, or workers to have, protection of an employee versus being out there on their own as an independent contractor who doesn't even have minimum wage protection, overtime, or any of those other things. If you're truly an independent contractor, you don't get those protections.
It's interesting to me about how this is all working out in regards to just California doing this. As you know, when you think about independent contractors, I just wanted to touch base on that. So when you say, the gig workers, like the Ubers, the Lyft drivers, what about, the musicians? We talked about that before, about a band who may have a regular gig in a restaurant or something. It's like, hey, we play Sunday brunch, every Sunday at this restaurant, and people know that they create a following for the restaurant, but they play gigs in other places. They may teach music. Now, would they be considered, with this new ABC test, an employee?
I would say that's a possibility, and it's going to depend on the facts. The case that we talked about that discussed the fact that you just raised, which was this band that played in a tavern that was in a ski lodge. And this was, I think, New York. I read it a while ago, and I know it was East Coast, but I'm pretty sure it was New York in one of the mountains. And there, the court said that, at least under New York ABC test, that those musicians who are playing regularly in this place were considered employees. So is it possible that will happen in California? Yeah, it is. Could they be exempt in California? Well, I don't know yet. We haven't seen all the exemptions.
Yeah, especially what if the band comes from out of state? I mean, I look at Yuma, Arizona, our hotel headquarters out there. The band could go from Yuma and hop over the bridge to California every night to go play in the casino over there. So that would be interesting,
Yeah. Well, normally where the worker is doing work is the state which governs the employment law. So if you're jumping over the state line into California and you're working there, then you probably would have a claim in the California courts or before the California Labor Commissioner, and California law would apply.
So you say, okay, so there's these three elements of the test, and so it's really about who has control over what happens. So what about people?
Maybe. It's not just control, because the ABC test is called the ABC test because it has three different elements: the A element, the B element, and the C element. And the A element is really about control. The B and C element are different requirements that employers have to meet.
Okay.
So if that's the kind of control you're talking about, control is not the only thing you consider.
Do you think, as this goes, like, if like an Uber driver now has become an independent or becomes an employee, what's going to happen to the actual customer? Do you think that that's going to be more expensive for the customer ultimately?
I think undoubtedly. When you take on employees versus independent contractors, that is usually an increase in the business cost of the business. That's one reason. Yeah, and that's one reason why you see as many independent contractors as you do. I mean, certainly there are legitimately workers for independent contractors. I am an independent contractor. I have multiple clients. I've been waived so far under the new legislation, and it just makes sense, the way I run my business and the number of clients I have, that I would be an independent contractor.
But then when a client has, like, don't you have clients who keep you under retainers, so that whenever they have a legal problem, they know they've got somebody they can trust to go to. So wouldn't that kind of make you an employee?
Well, if you look at the B prong, it talks about the usual course of the hiring entity's business.
Mhm.
So if litigation is in the usual course of the hiring entity's business, certainly, and I think, I give a lot of advice, and certainly some types of advice would be in the usual course. So is it possible that under the right circumstances, I could be considered an employee of a business? Yes, under this test, it might be possible,
Mm.
but the California legislature has included exemptions for hairstylists, barbers, doctors, dentists,
Oh.
lawyers, architects, engineers. So they're accountants. There's more that have been exempt from this. So you're right. That raises a great question. If you broadly construe this usual course element, which is the B element, then it could really encompass almost every type of work.
Exactly. Yeah, it's almost taking away entrepreneurship.
I think it takes away building a strong relationship between a customer and a contractor. You know what I mean? That takes away that relationship of, being able to develop something that's consistent and ongoing.
Yeah, if you depend on somebody to come and mow your lawn, or garden around the outskirts of your business on a continual basis, and then they become an employee, then now a person is an employee that doesn't want to be an employee. They just want regular customers to go clean around the building and fix the garden on a regular basis. But if you become somebody's employee, then they can tell you, don't come at 10 a.m., come at 2. And then the now new employee would say, well, I already have another client at 2, I can't. And so now you get fired. So now you can go get unemployment. I mean, I'm just looking at this as.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This legislation, first, the Dynamics case is looking to increase the number of employees. So there'll be fewer independent contractors than there were employees just under that case, at least for limited purposes. I said, the Dynamics case was limited in its application. The new law is probably unlimited and will apply in all employment circumstances. So there will be many, many more workers who will be considered true employees. And that's just the way it is. And will it cost more? Like you said, workers' comp, unemployment. Yeah, it will. California, like I said, has taken the position that, we protect our workers. So if you follow that through, then we want more workers and fewer independent contractors. That's just a policy throughout the state, and that's what Dynamics really picked up on. It said, hey, look, we're fairly protective, and really haven't been that protective of some of these independent contractors. We think they need to be more protected under the laws that have already been passed by the legislature. So that seems to be the policy of the legislature. And now the legislature is following up on that with a new law that will apply the ABC test very broadly in almost all employment situations. So you're right. Of course it's going to cost more.
Oh, and what about all the insurance? I mean, isn't this now kick in that you have to do health care and all of that kind of stuff as an employer?
Well, certainly you have to do time off for sick leave. That applies to all employees. In terms of healthcare, you don't have to offer healthcare unless you meet certain requirements. And so most businesses probably aren't going to meet all those requirements. You probably wouldn't be required. Well, it depends on the situation, but most employers probably wouldn't be forced to provide care, healthcare.
I can see a lot of people being really angry. Like my next door neighbor gets to be exempt, I don't get to be exempt, and going back and forth to the government saying no, as a group, like here's the gardening group, we want to be exempt, and here comes another group, we want to be exempt, and eventually everybody will be exempt and the law won't mean anything.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. I wanted to ask Stephanie, because Stephanie, you've worked in so many. You've worked in, city management and in government. You've worked in so many different ways in life in regards to having different companies and even in the healthcare industry. What do you think about this law? This potential what could happen in regards to independent contractors suddenly like, oh, sorry, you're an employee. What would you think as a business owner when you think about the roles that you've played in owning businesses and in management before?
Well, I understand the concern about protecting your employees, but then I feel like it takes away the opportunities that people have for small businesses to have like niche businesses, because now it's so regulated that the same thing about forcing people to purchase health care for their employees after you have a certain number, it put a lot of people out of business. And for me, that's when a lot of the small healthcare businesses got gobbled up by the larger corporations, because they just could no longer afford to uphold the law.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is kind of an interesting point when you bring up, because it gets down into what happens to the smaller business down the road. Yeah, I mean, could Uber, Ward, at this point end up not having, I mean, just be now you are forced to now run a full-on company with employees when you didn't even set your business model that way?
Yes.
Are you,
And I honestly think that's the point, especially with
Mhm.
companies like Uber and Lyft, that
Mhm.
I mean, what is their business is the question. They say, well, we're a platform and we put ride sharers in, well, people who provide rides with people who want to ride. And that's all we do. We're just a middleman, is what they're saying.
Right.
But in reality, it just doesn't really look that way. It looks like they're in the rideshare business, and once you get that established, then all those people who do the work of providing rides, they're employees under the ABC test. I just don't see any way around it.
Wow. And maybe they don't want to be an employee because that could ruin things that
Exactly.
they've got set up for themselves personally. You know,
Well,
because some
yeah,
people can only make so much and not be an employee. Like some people may be on disability, or maybe they're semi-retired, or maybe they're in school and they don't really want to have this. It can affect what they're doing, because everybody has to do something, these days, because of all these loopholes. Like, not all these loopholes, all these laws. And, so this could, I almost feel like what Stephanie was saying, like this is forcing everybody into, like, you're either A or B. There is no C anymore. It just kind of squishes that we're all gonna,
well, that's
as
true. Not every job should be forced to support a household.
exactly.
So not every job should be forced to pay an employee enough to make a house payment, car payment, put your kids through school. A lot of jobs are there for your first job, a student job, part-time job, people who can't go to college. There's all kinds of reasons to have jobs that are part-time, that are lower wage, and to force these laws on people, it may help a certain level of people pay a little bit more bills, but look at the damage, because I was just in California, and I don't think I bought a cup of coffee from a person. I did it from a screen. So the person that was normally behind the counter taking your order, well, they've been phased out by an iPad.
Right.
Oh, it's like going to like your big box stores, like put your mango in the bag as you check yourself out. This voice comes
Yes.
out and tells you, put your mango in the bag.
But
Put your,
this,
I mean,
yeah,
and there's people running around helping you put your mango in the bag because people are confused by how to check through the groceries by yourself. So
mm,
I see
yeah,
this as a
no,
no.
well, no, I totally agree. There's two sides to this coin. There
Yeah.
absolutely is. Um, there are workers out there who really, I talked to them on the phone. I just talked to some court reporters the other day who feel like they're being forced to be employees and they really don't want to be.
Wow.
They want to be independent.
Yeah.
So there's one group that's having a hard time with this. But, there's also other people who want to be an employee and not an independent contractor. You see them all the time too. So there's two separate groups in camps who feel differently about the changes in the law, at least in California. And you're right about how the market reacts to it. If you increase a cost somewhere, and then making an independent contractor an employee normally will increase the cost of the business, then that business may react by getting rid of that job, where before it was cheap enough to keep. You're right. So you have more touch screens. Now, is that a bad thing to have more touch screens? Well, I don't know. It's, I don't know. It's just a policy determination. And I think eventually, whether it happens because of this law now or not, that would probably happen anyway 50 years from now. I'm not sure how many checkers you're going to have at stands anymore. I think a lot of it's going to be automated anyway. I think it's just the Pony Express.
Well, then what's the incentive? What's the incentive for going out and doing
and
more,
starting a business,
better education, or starting a business, or doing some, when you can just go to Jack in the Box and make a livable wage?
Well, I don't think
we're talking about livable wage here. That's more of a minimum wage issue. What we're talking about is are all the protections that are provided to employees granted to these gig economy workers?
Yeah, because I also look at, there's people that just want to go in. That is like what Stephanie was saying about, hey, I'm a college student. This is helping me get through. I can be flexible. That's what's the thing with this is that being an independent contractor and doing something like Uber is you're flexible. Do I want to take that gig or not? That's why it's called a gig.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You want to take it or not? Are you able to? And when you have a bunch of people that are able to do that, it works. If you're trying to be an Uber driver in, like Springfield, Kentucky, I don't know how, you're going to be I don't know how many Uber drivers you're going to get in your town, right, Stephanie? I don't know. But you're going to be called on all the time. But if you're in like Little Rock, Arkansas, or San Diego, where we just were, you're going to have a big pool of people that it's going to really work because everybody can use their flexibility to answer that call for the client. But with this, I think it's going to take away the flexibility of people being able to, hey, I want to jump on that gig. That's what I see.
Let's talk about Springfield because it's a perfect opportunity. Okay, there are no Uber drivers in Springfield right now. So let's say somebody signs up to drive for Uber and they're the only ones here. Then what happens?
Then
they're going to be on call 24/7.
Exactly. So that's
they
what
have
it is.
no flexibility.
They would if you're an employee. If you're an employee, they're kind of screwed, right, Ward? But if you're an independent contractor, they don't have to answer that call. See?
Well, all right. In Springfield, first of all, this law, ABC
is California.
Is California.
Right.
I don't know if that would apply in Springfield or not, but let's assume that it does. And you have someone working for Uber who now is considered an employee. What will his workday, his or her workday look like? I think you'd see it fall in line with many other types of jobs where, now you got to pay overtime. So you're going to say, all right, look, I need you for 8 hours a day. I don't need you a minute more. You get your lunch break, but, punch that clock. And if you don't like it, well, tough, because that's what you got to do. Now, if we leave it as independent drivers, then they can work when they want. They can work,
right?
Stop working. They can take as much time off as they want. So there is definitely more flexibility.
Right.
Again, it's a policy thing, and California has said, hey, we're going to protect our workers, whether they're independent now or not, more than maybe many other states, certainly more than many other states. That's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
Now, the other side of that coin, though, is it's going to create less flexibility and more cost.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear what you're saying, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying that California is right or wrong. I mean, it's really just a policy decision.
Yeah.
You go to Europe and they have all sorts of different policies, and they have mandatory vacation for 6 months.
I think that's cool.
Well, right. But does a business owner think that's cool? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know well, I know when you come up, you're always like, listen, I'm the attorney. I'm just informing and taking care of business. And we're always like, dude, but this sucks, or it's really cool. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Well, I just want you guys to make up your own mind. I really don't want to influence you with any inclinations
Yeah.
that I have. I
Yeah.
have ideas about what policies might be the most effective. I really don't think my position as an attorney is a good place
Yeah.
to stating those things.
No. But it's important, I think, for both sides to know this, the business and
Yeah,
the employee. Everybody
absolutely.
needs to be very aware of this. That's why I'm really glad that you bring this up and continue to talk about this. So do you think this whole thing could go into place for the new laws for 2020?
Oh, absolutely. I feel so certain that they're going to get something done. It's in the Senate right now, the California Senate, that they'll get something done there, and it'll be on the governor's desk. And there's no reason to think that Gavin Newsom will not sign it.
Right.
Wow.
And
Right.
that'll
So
be effective January 1st, 2020.
wow, that fast. So when we do the big
Hmm.
year roundup for you, or everyone, I should say, in California and for 2020, this is going to be on there. It's going to be on there in some format that it's going to happen. So again, just give a very quick overview of exactly who needs to be aware in regards to whether they're employee, and then if they're an employer, who really needs to be, pay attention to this.
Well, any of the gig economy people,
Hmm.
and that I've seen all sorts of things on the internet recently where you might have some business that says we're a platform that provides short-term household help. So if you want help moving a big heavy piece of furniture, you can get them for an hour. I think any business that's set up like that is really going to have a hard time keeping those people as independent contractors. What I've seen is that's what they do. They have them set up as independent. Of
Okay.
course, Uber and Lyft, that's the big one, and everyone knows about that. But that's the same thing. It's gig economy. People who are signing a contract saying, yes, I want the flexibility, and I'll work when I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure that there are people there who want my service.
Mm.
So any of those situations, that's going to make a big difference. I think maybe tattoo artists would be another one where they have these parlors and people ostensibly rent space from the tattoo parlor owner. And I think, unless they're truly independent, they're going to have a hard time, and they're probably not, because it's in the usual course. They're doing tattoos, really tough. Now, there are, again, exemptions for some of these things. I haven't seen tattoo artists come up, but I've seen hairstylists and barbers. I think they're going to be exempt, because that's how hairstylists have worked for years, and barbers, mostly
Mm.
hairstylists.
Right.
They'll have someone come in with their own clientele, and they'll just rent them a spot. Now,
Right.
the problem is, under the old law, they weren't just renting spot. They were having to pick up the phones, sweep up, stuff like that. And that's where the problems would lie. But now with the B prong of the ABC test, they're doing work in the usual course. Pretty tough not to be an employee unless you get exempt, like they appear they will be by the time this law is signed.
Wow.
So there's all sorts of situations like that. And if they don't have an exemption, court reporters is another one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're all. I think most of them, from what I know about the industry, are exempt, and they just work here and there. Oh, the interpreters, court interpreters too.
Wow.
I've talked to them where they say, hey, we just show up when we need to. We get paid a flat rate, and we're fine. And they don't like that very well.
Wow.
So
Yeah, what about graphic designers and social media, part-timers and the people of the company? What about those people, graphics, website designers, and those who maintain it? websites. I mean, to me, that's something I look at because I know people that manage like social media sites for a number of companies, and they say, okay, I'm always going to do your post on the first Friday at this time, or you know what I mean? They have some kind of schedule
Yeah.
about when their marketing's going out or deadlines. It's a deadline oriented business, so there is some kind of schedule to it. So that kind of, I
Well,
worry about
and
that.
traditionally, that's been pretty good for independent contractor analysis, and those people would end up being independent contractors because you have a deadline, but they're doing their own thing on their own. You just say,
Okay.
get it done by this date. I don't care how you do it. You're the expert.
Anybody in the creative world should be exempt from anything.
From everything.
Is it in the usual course? Is that in the usual course of your business? And marketing arguably is. And so
Mm.
now there's an exemption in the present law that has not been signed for HR specialists and marketers with advanced degrees. So if you don't have an advanced degree and you're a website designer, are you an independent contractor, even if you work for 50 people? I don't know. I don't know the answer.
That's kind of messed up because you know what, I'm just going to say that is you can go to school for half of that stuff and it's changed by the time you get out. So I'm just saying that's rude. I agree with school and college big time, but some of these industries that it changes so fast that half of the people I know that graduated in broadcasting, it's changed. So I'm just saying, sorry, but like that sucks for people. Like if you're no, I'm just saying. I'm sorry. I think this is, because we're all independent spirits here, that this kind of like gets us a little bit,
Yeah.
but
And I have a hard time with the marketing angle of it because when you think about website designers and all those people that I consider really marketers to at least in one way or the other. And that's why I brought up that case about the band. I mean, that's really what they're saying is that's marketing for your tavern. So there are employees. Well, really broad, and it just seems maybe too broad.
Yeah.
And you have to see how that plays out. Maybe they'll have an exemption that will be directly in the law, and there won't be a question about it anymore. But if not, then that probably have to be litigated, and they may be employees.
Wow, this is going to be interesting.
The law's too broad. I mean, it's like, okay, you go to a veterinarian only when you need to go to a veterinarian because your dog or your cat is sick. But you could say that just about anything. I only go to get my hair done when I really look bad and I really need to get it done. Or I only go shopping when I really need to shop. It's a little bit too broad. It's like if you go to a mechanic, what about a mechanic? You only go when you need your car to be fixed. Are they now an employee because maybe you need to get the car fixed?
No, because you need oil changes.
That's interesting, but all right, that's not the usual course of your business, though. So because you're an individual, so those people can still be independent contractors for you. But let's say you run a rental fleet of cars.
Yeah.
And you don't do it in-house. Some places do, but you have the work on the cars done outside your business. Is that the usual course? Sounds like it is. So then you wouldn't have an independent contractor on that.
Wow, I'm looking at so many, like I'm looking at the hotel industry with catering partners, that kind of thing. Like you could run a hotel and then you work with a specific caterer. They have like their own agreements, and then here comes the court saying, "Sorry, no," So it's going to be interesting, and I hope they like put out some kind of list for everybody. Like they need, Ward, that's why we love you coming on the shows. You really do a good job of letting people get a heads up. This is coming down the pipeline because we don't get letters as business owners, no matter what state you're in. No one's sending you, Stephanie, do you get letters saying, hey, by the way, this is changing and you should be aware of it? No one gets letters or any kind of notification saying this can change your business, your organization, your independent career, or independent contractor position, and you don't hear this stuff. And I think this is one of those cases that I think that it affects too many people, because so many, especially independent contractors in California. I mean, look at it. There's so many people that no way. That this is something that they should really be alerting everybody about when they make this decision, don't you think?
Well, it's made the news a lot, and that's one reason why I've been talking about it
Yeah.
frequently. I think most people realize something like this is coming down the pike.
Yeah.
You're paying
Just,
it all attention. You know there's a change.
Yeah.
You probably know that there will be fewer independent contractors.
wow.
So
I even know
I
people
feel like
bartend-
it hurts the free market, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
We no longer have it's too broad. No longer have the choice to make a choice.
Yeah.
So like coming out from the airport, there's more cars that have the both an Uber and a Lyft sticker on them than just one, and it's because they want the freedom to take this call or that call or no call, to work the max or to work to take off when they want. And I just really feel like it's government overreach.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to cost California. Some people will, rather than set up business in California, they'll go to another state.
I wonder if this is going to move to other states. Well, did you see anything for New York, Ward? Because it's always California and New York, like
Yeah,
neck
well,
and neck with this.
like I said early in the show,
Mm.
2/3 of the states already have the ABC test or a form of it. So it's already pretty common. What I don't know is how do the other states interpret the ABC
Yeah,
test
how
in their
deep?
state. I
Hmm.
do keep bringing up that one New York, and again, I think it was New York, one of those East Coast places in the mountain. And I just happened to read it because I wanted to get a feel for what ABC test might be all about. And it was a while ago. But the point is, there could be lots of case law and legislation already on this in other states that I'm just really not all that aware of.
Yeah, yeah, we should.
And maybe even Kentucky's got it, and you don't know it. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, hey,
I
Stephanie,
hope
be
not.
happening. She's all like, "Uh-oh, I'm gonna go check stuff. I'm gonna go talk to my friends, see what's going on with them." Yeah, I think this is just an interesting. It's really interesting, and I see some parts where, like we were saying earlier too, that there's going to be some benefits for people. I think that I like what Stephanie says in regards to. Well, I don't like what she's saying. I'm agreeing with her that it's taking away this freedom of choice, and I think with this ABC contractor test, I think that there should be almost a level of when you go to apply for a job, do you want part-time or full-time? And maybe there should just be like, do you want to be a contractor, a part-time, or a full-time? And maybe go that way. And maybe they should adopt the independent contractor system as as part of the positive. And that's something between the employer and the contractor / employee. I'd like to see the third box.
They have talked about that in California, and so far it hasn't gotten any traction. But there has been talk, and in fact, Uber and Lyft are trying to negotiate with the unions to say, "Hey, we'll be a union shop, but we still want our workers independent contractors. If you will support that, we'll have a union agreement, and you can provide some of these protections." So, and
What
but again, that has not, it's just very preliminary. And the last thing I heard about that was the unions walked out on it.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I don't think it's going to happen in California, but again, there has been some talk about it.
Wow. Wow. And so, Ward, if people have questions, can they call you or email you through your website?
Yeah, they can email me through my website. They can call me at 858-292-0792.
Okay.
And yes, that's the easiest way to do it. Either my website, which is bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com.
The best URL, man. I always say that every time. bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com. I know. I keep getting notifications on all your podcasts on YouTube. I'm like, dude, call him. call Ward. But that's great. I love that you get that. It seems that a lot of people are getting mad about their payment, that they're not getting paid or not getting their their checks on time. I see that happening on a lot of comments on your podcast, that people they would like their employer to pay them on time.
I guess I should check my podcast more often. I haven't. I'm gonna check more. Get more.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with that, with people not getting their paycheck, you know.
Well, it's fairly common, especially the last paycheck might be late. There are other businesses that are struggling and may not be paying people on time because they just don't have the capital. So you see that. It's it's fairly common, late paychecks.
Yeah. And listen, if you're an employee or an independent contractor, you can say, okay, that's it, I'm moving on. You have that ability to do that either way, no matter whatever the state decides you are. But Ward, as always, it's always a pleasure having you on the show, and it's always fun. It's fun to have Stephanie here, and we'll have to hijack her and take her with us when we get to California in the fall, and then we can do this all in person. It'll be so much more fun.
Oh, that'd be cool. Maybe we
Yeah.
can do it up in Julian and visit Chef Ivan afterwards.
Yeah, we could do that. We can go up to Julian. Chef Ivan's in Temecula. Let's see, Chef Jeremy.
Oh, Chef Jeremy. I'm sorry. That's what I meant.
No. Ivan is in Temecula, teaching students in the school, and Chef Jeremy's cooking up wonderful dishes up in the mountains. I don't think they have any Uber drivers in Julian. It's kind of like Springfield, actually.
I'll bet you there are. I'll bet you there's some up there.
Yeah, they're going to be taking everyone home from the wineries. That's what they're doing up there.
Right.
The breweries and the wineries, taking them back to their B&B. So everyone, again, bestemploymentattorneysandiego.com is Ward's website. He's also on Facebook and Twitter. And, the other thing is you can read his article on this. We'll give you a good overview. Just go to blendradioandtv.com. It'll also be in the next issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. Also, if you're in the hospitality industry, he did cover this also on our Parks and Travel magazine, so you can check that out at nationalparktraveling.com. Thank you so much for joining us, Ward. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.